and create lasting impact. And today I have my special guest, turning these engaged teams into innovation powerhouses. Well, that'd be amazing. And of course, an author too, no other than Miss Vanya Boardman.
Thank you so much for having me today, Daniel. I'm excited to be here with you.
Welcome again, Miss Vanya, to one of my podcasts. And looking forward for our book 101 review. And let's talk about the book itself. So, you are the co-founder of PlayInnové. Tell us about it.
So, PlayInnové came about because, well, I didn't actually start out as an entrepreneur. I started out as someone who stepped in when things broke and, somehow and usually made them better. So I started out in internal operations and facilities operations and administration. And every once in a while found myself stepping into IT or talent when others left the organization. And I kind of became one of those people that was just the constant in chaos and someone who figured it out when there was really no playbook. But that also made it so it was someone who saw when systems were a little bit broken. And I also noticed when people were drained and when there were cultures where voices stayed quiet and there were leaders that were carrying pressure with nowhere to put it. And at some point, I realized that all of these situations aren't really problems with the people. They're problems with how people are experiencing the work environment. And so I set out to do something a little bit different and bold. And I didn't just leave a job, I left a way of working that no longer made sense to me. And so, along with a very good friend of mine, Austin Roberts, we co founded PlayInnové, not as an events company or team building, but as a movement to rehumanize the way we interact at work. So
Yes.
that was how I became the co-founder of PlayInnové, and really just looking to do things differently because we spend so much time at work that we need to find a way to enjoy it at the same time.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Ms. Vanya. Thank you for sharing Play Innovate in the world. You work in financial services, telecommunications, and health tech. Three industries where the phrase "let's play" is rarely heard in the boardroom. What made you believe that play is not just compatible with high stakes environments, but actually essential for sustaining innovation?
Well, a couple things. First off, in a couple of those industries, there we did have leaders that invited play and creativity into the workplace. And I experienced firsthand how play can remove hierarchy, like lowers that barrier between the top and the bottom. It can really be used not as a distraction, but as a strategy to unlock trust and candor and innovation. And so I did have leaders that said, let's play together. Let's go and do something. Let's get every team in the office to create a different game and we'll have a game day. And
Mhm.
it made us think differently. They said, let's build, let's paint, and while we're doing that, let's just do things differently and rethink how we think. And somehow it worked. It like brought our walls down and conversations got real. Our friendships got deeper and we enjoyed being at work in that environment. And so as I moved into other environments, some of them were still really great, but there was one environment that always stuck out to me. And it was the environment where we could bring our full selves. And by playing is where we really learned that we could bring that whole self, that we could bring the silly side and the serious side and the strategic side, and it could coexist in one place. And even if we were being silly and, having fun, we could still be working through real challenges while we did it. And that company was really successful. So not just for the people that were in it, but it was acquired multiple times, and it was a successful, wonderful place to be. And so it was through lived experience that I really realized that this is what I want to bring to the workplace because I know it can be done. I've seen how much it can change the work environment, the culture, your retention, and it can make the company money versus save the company and just save money overall. Make the company money, don't lose money. Um, the longer you can keep your talent, the less expensive it is to replace them. And not to mention, organizational knowledge. You lose that every time someone leaves. So if you can retain people through making it a great place to be, a place to be excited to go to, what are you going to experience today? You're going to make money in the long run, and you're going to come up with new and great ways to do things because people are going to be willing to speak up.
Well said, Ms. Vanya. Play is often mistaken for, well, lack of seriousness. How do you define play in a professional context? And what is the actual mechanism that makes it business lever than a team building distraction?
So let me think about this for just a moment. You are correct that a lot of businesses see play as a distraction. And so the way that we spin it is actually to work through strategic things in play. So let's say, for instance, we might bring Lego Serious Play is something we use a lot. It tends to be our biggest seller. It's what's up on the screen right now that you can see. Um, but Lego Serious Play is a way for you to build solutions to problems or build ideas that you can see in a 3D format. So in this case, let's say we're talking really, high level strategy, SWOT, and we have a team of maybe 6 to 12 executive leaders, and they are doing a strategy session, and we're starting with strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And instead of going through and everybody writing it down on a piece of paper or taking notes and they're yelling it out, we would essentially say to the whole group, please build, utilizing the Legos in front of you, a representation of your number one strength, of what you believe as the individual is the number one strength of our organization. And so in that case, everyone goes and they have maybe 3 to 5 minutes to build some kind of representation of this strength. And then we go around to the group and we ask them to speak about that representation. And what we find is, yes, some of those are going to overlap, and that means you're on the right path. But some of those are going to differ, which allows you to continue to create those strengths and weaknesses as you go along. So you build something in response to a question. So we build multiple times. Okay, now that we did what's the number one strength for the organization, what are the next three? You have 5 minutes to build 3 more strengths that the organization holds. And you start building that list in a very playful way, but you're still working through strategy as you do it. And then you move on to weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But every single voice in the room has an opportunity to speak, to share what they've built, and has an opportunity to weigh in on what's going up on this chart of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So that's just an example of one of the ways that we use it, but we really do tackle challenges and strategy questions, building values, talking through personal values and how they fit with internal values. What are personal motivators? All through building or creating and sharing. So storytelling, some creation, some and then open dialogue. But by doing that, again, we're creating space for every voice in the room to be heard. So no idea is overlooked. Does that help answer?
Well done, Ms. Vanya. What's the most counterintuitive finding from your research? The thing about innovation that surprises leaders most when you present it.
Right now, I think the thing that surprises leaders most when I present it is when I tell them that innovation is ultimately human. That right now, even with all the AI tools out there, if we're going to come up with something that's completely novel, no one's ever seen it before, it's going to come from the human brain, not from AI. Well, AI can make great connections. It can even help us ideate and go out there. Anything that we're finding in AI is pulling from something that already exists. So it still lies within us. And what I find is when I say that to leaders, they're immediately like, "You're right." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, it's the truth, right? LLMs are created by somebody. The information already exists out there. Now there may be new connections that don't exist, but anything that's going to be brand new to the market or brand new to our world is going to come from the human brain."
Miss Vanya, psychological safety has become a buzzword, but you actually work with in practice. What is the difference between a team that talks about psychological safety and a team where it's actually present? What can you observe or feel?
Well, I think one of the things that you observe or feel first in a team that's psychologically safe is every voice in the room is speaking up. No one is holding back. Everyone is sharing ideas. Everyone is contributing to the conversation. And if they're not, if you have a quiet person in the back, you're going to find that the leader of a meeting or of that situation is going to say, "Hey, we haven't heard from," let's say it's me, "Vanya right now. Vanya, you have any input on this?" They're going to ensure that everyone in the room knows that they have the opportunity to speak and we want to hear your opinion. So I think that's a big one. You don't find people holding back. You don't hear silence in in a meeting. You hear people raising their hand, giving their contributions and talking out loud. I think the other thing is you find people are coming in as their full selves. So you might find people cracking jokes and like close relationships. You walk into a room when you're first arriving in a meeting, you notice that people are enjoying the environment. They're not usually on their phone or in their devices, and if they are, most people are like, "What are you doing over there? Why aren't you talking to us?" So you'll see that it's extremely engaging, and once again, there's just a lot of open communication. And I think that's one of the telltale signs is if you go into a meeting and every voice is heard during that 30 minutes, you're probably in a pretty psychologically safe environment.
Indeed. So you've said when people feel connected and empowered, breakthrough thinking follows. What is the most common barrier to connection in organizations that chronically undermines the conditions you're trying to create?
Well, trust, and trust is a hard one because trust is different to everybody. And it, for some people, it's immediate and you lose it. And for others, it has to be earned. And so it can be really hard to create environments where is just present. However, I do think that play and human connection and interaction and interacting in a different way helps to build trust. The more that you get to know about someone and see how they react in different ways, whether that's, doing watercolor or Legos or Lincoln Logs at work, and you're working through real challenges and problems, you experience them in a different way than you would if we were just sitting in front of a computer. And I think that those human interactions where inside jokes come up and there's opportunities to experiment and throw out ideas that probably just go out a window, but you can still bring them up and everybody enjoys it, creates those moments where trust is built. So I do believe that play and our involvement is so important to building that, the one thing that can really get in the way of really high performing teams, and that's broken trust or no trust at all.
Well done, Ms. Vanya. You work at the intersection of cultural and innovation. What is a cultural trait that looks like healthy, people getting along, low conflict, and high politeness, but actually surprises innovation rather than enabling it?
Can you repeat the question for me?
Yes, definitely. You work with the intersection of a cultural and innovation, isn't
Yeah.
it? So, what is the cultural trait that looks like healthy, like people getting along, low conflict, and high politeness, but actually suppresses innovation rather than enabling it?
Okay, so I'm glad I re-asked because I hadn't heard it correctly the first time. So to me, the high politeness actually is not, well, yes, we need to be kind to each other and treat each other with respect. Being overly polite can actually stifle innovation because if you're not giving feedback, if you're not, the whole idea is to have open candor, right? That's what
Hmm.
drives innovation, is to be able to speak with each other openly. That's how you build trust, is by being, really, again, respectful, but it doesn't have to be overly polite. I would say, yes, people are having fun, people are communicating, people are talking, but people are also willing to get down and say, hey, I think we've had a disagreement. Let's work through that. And, look for creative ways and creative solutions to move through it, to move forward. So I think that's really, really important. I also think what's really important in psychologically safe environments is this idea that we fail fast and we fail forward. We are human. We're going to fail. We're going to make mistakes. But we need to learn from them. And we don't look down on that. We actually try and celebrate it. Hey, we didn't make it this time, but what did we learn from it? What are we taking into the next one? And we do that in an upbeat way, because it happens. And for the individual, anytime those kind of things happen, it's hard to work through it. We go through our own process. But in an environment, if you can say, hey, we celebrate these, we learned something from it. What are we going to take away from it and use in the future? That's really important also. So I don't think that being overly polite is part of the equation of a innovative culture.
Your work strengthens communications, engagement, and collaboration through experiential methods. What specific technique you use that consistently unlocks communication patterns a team did not even know were broken?
Well, one of the tools that we have recently incorporated into our work, which we absolutely love, is the foresight thinking preferences assessment. So this is actually, it's an assessment that you do prior, it's like pre-work to one of our sessions or workshops. And but it talks about the problem solving process, the creative problem solving process. And there's essentially four steps in the creative problem solving process, from clarifying, ideation, development, and then implementation. And so in this case, we do an assessment of all of the participants, and they go through and it identifies where they prefer to work. Now, everybody can work through the creative problem solving process. We all go through it. It just has to do with where you get the most energy versus what you get a little drained from. But it is really a lot of fun because we don't reveal it, like what the assessment has said, until we've done the workshop. So you come into the workshop, we then work with you and put you into different teams and groups and see how the different profiles interact with each other and have conversation about it. And what's interesting is by the time we get to the end of a couple activities, most of the people can start to guess where other people are on that spectrum. And it's a lot of fun. So we have this interactive aspect, some async aspect, but it unlocks insights that allow teams to speak differently to each other. So, for instance, like, even for myself, I'm a high implementer. I like to ideate and I like to implement, but I'm not necessarily the developer person. I don't want to go in and I like to come up with an idea and then test it. Let's go straight to pilot. So that's the implement part. And my business partner, Austin, he has a little bit higher on the developer side. And so he'll say to me, my developer is getting in the way. Can you give me 20 minutes to just go down this rabbit hole for a little bit? And then I can say, yes, I can give you that time. Where before we had done this, I would get frustrated and be like, do we really need 20 minutes? Like, here's where we're at. We can just test it. But by being able to have the same dialogue, and we've done this testing and we've learned a little bit about each other, we can attack those frustration moments a little bit differently. And I've seen it happen within the teams we're working with too. And they've mentioned it as well, that it has helped them to say, hey, let's pause, let's take a moment, because we know your preference is here. That way we need to spend a little bit more time in the develop or the clarify state. So it's been really interesting to watch that grow with our clientele.
Interesting indeed. Ms. Vanya, you believe that when people feel empowered, innovation follows. But empowerment can feel risky to leaders who are accountable for results. How do you help leaders move from control to empowerment without feeling like they're losing control?
Well, that's a hard one because some of that is very personal. So, leaders that are struggling with giving control to teams that they've hired, I highly recommend they seek out coaching. You do want to work with an executive coach that can hold your hand as you start to let go. Because again, this is a trust issue. If you're having a hard time letting go and allowing, like you hire wonderful people that are very capable, very intelligent, and can do the job. But if you can't let go as a leader, not only are you hurting them, you're hurting yourself. Your time goes out the window because you're overseeing people or not able to fully let go of the project. The relationship that you have with the person you're managing isn't great because there's strained trust. They're probably a little afraid that they can't deliver if you're constantly involved. But also, you're taking away the opportunity for them to learn and grow. Again, in innovative environments, failing fast and failing forward is really important. And so you need to give people the opportunity to fail so that they can learn. And so for a leader not to be able to give up control, there's concern there. And I would highly recommend that you look into executive coaching so that someone can walk with you as you start to give additional responsibilities and accountability to people that are below you and on your team.
Well said, Ms. Vanya. And to wrap up our discussion for today, you've dedicated your work to proving the extraordinary organizations are built on connection, creativity, and psychological safety. If you could sit across from a CEO who says, I don't have time to for play, I have business to run, what would you want to them to understand about what they are actually sacrificing by making that choice?
What would I want them to know by making that choice? I would want them to know that they have missed an opportunity to connect, to open up doors for some of the most brilliant minds to be seen, valued, and heard. And can they actually afford to pass by innovation that's hidden within their own doors? They might want to test out play just a little bit before they give up.
Yes, definitely try and try until you succeed. So, Miss Vanya, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support, be part of Play Innové on and your books itself?
Yeah, absolutely. We would love to invite everybody listening to check out our website, www.playinnove.com. That's PLAYINNOVE.com. Or you can reach out to us at engage@playinnove.com. Either way would be great. And our wonderful book, if you want to check it out, is called The Innovation Imperative: How Extraordinary Leaders Sustain the Spark. We would love to gain your feedback.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Vanya Boardman because for sure, if you support her, more and more Play Innovate will rise. So, Miss Vanya, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here today, Daniel.
Likewise, and looking forward for Book 101 review. More to come, people. See you soon.